Hi everyone, Lily here, the data analyst with the Clark Hewlings Fund for Visual Artists. Today we're sitting down with Stephen Lester, an Accelerator Fellow, to talk with him about how he's adapted his art business during this strange time. So yeah, Stephen, welcome. Thanks for
Thank
joining.
you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. And Stephen, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions in particular about how you've changed your technique or strategy with your art business. And the first question is really, you'd mentioned that you had been revisiting previous collectors. So I wanted to know how that's happening and what kind of process you're using to do that, what kind of re-engagement strategies you have.
Well, since I'm a sports artist, and I guess most of your listeners don't realize that, I had been largely focused on corporate contracts, and that was my overall business objective, which, by the way, was clarified through Clark Hewlings. And I've been going after that. Last year, 100% of my income came out of corporate contracts. This year, 0% has come out of corporate contracts. So, as Mike Tyson, the well-known boxer, said, that everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I think 2020 has been a big punch in the mouth for all of us. And we had to learn how to pivot. And certainly I have. And, struggling with that, went through a period where I was really wrestling with what I was going to do because corporate just dried up. Actually, one of my clients that I had been working and were in discussions had actually told me that their marketing budget, it was a global provider and actually a sponsor of the Olympics, and they said their overall budget had been cut by $1 billion. That's a billion with a B. So I saw that they weren't interested in buying art. And so I had to pivot. And that's been a struggle for me. I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. But to answer your question more directly, I leaned on some other areas of income besides corporate contracts. I look at them as pillars holding up a roof, if you will. And you have multiple streams of income. I'm fortunate to have all those multiple streams of income come in the art or creative industry. Not everybody has that.
Sure.
But when one of those pillars erodes or falls, you can lean on the others. And one of those was my current collectors, I call them clients, some people call them. And as you go back to revisit, which is one of the things I have done, almost 100% of my income this year has come from revisiting current clients. And the ways I have done that has been as varied as there are customers. And that is going to maybe make an initial outreach through a newsletter or through an email, calling, develop. I'm a highly relational person, so I much prefer to talk to somebody in person rather than just texting or something like that. But I keep regular communication and have cultivated those relationships. Now, in all fairness, I want to say that I don't have a large pool of buyers. I've only been doing this for professionally for a few years now. But I have a very loyal. In fact, I have a couple of hundred people that have bought more than one of my paintings. And so I went back to some of those and talked to them about the current situation and where they were and the need for beauty and joy in their lives. And fortunately, that has worked for me. I have had one client alone has bought 12 paintings this year.
Yeah.
I had another one that bought 5 commissioned pieces. And I'm still working on those. So that's been a good experience for me.
Yeah, and I just want to jump off of what you just said. I mean, the shift to commission work seems to be one of the biggest trends that we're seeing during the pandemic for visual art businesses. And another thing that you said has been coming up a lot in these interviews as I talk with different fellows is really the idea of instilling hope and joy and how people are buying more art. Perhaps some people are going back to their tried and true artists that they collect, art from to purchase, to kind of just give them that inspiration. And it's interesting, there are similar patterns in what everyone is saying, right? Like they're re-engaging, maybe re-engaging old collectors in a more one-on-one fashion. As you mentioned, your approach is highly individualized depending upon the collector, but sounds like it starts, the top of the funnel is really, or, you know, just to send out an email newsletter. And I think that sounds like kind of in line with what a lot of other artists are expressing.
Yeah, I mean, you just drop the lines in the water and see where the nibbles are, and
Yeah, I
you
like your metaphors.
put the energy there, and that's been fruitful for me, and it's kept me alive, not only emotionally but also financially. So I'm grateful for that. You know, also, you know, Lily, I mentioned to you that I had these multiple streams of income, and they were things that I had been working on. Actually, I had pivoted away from those multiple streams. I'd gone away from doing commission work, and other than corporate,
Sure.
I do a lot of portraits. I don't enjoy doing portraits, but that's been a major source of income for me for
Hmm.
a number of years. And so, you know, I've gotten back to doing some of that. And the other thing I used to do is I started my career as a commercial illustrator. So I'm very, very adept at doing commission work. A lot of artists, that's a struggle for them. It
Yeah.
wasn't a struggle at all for me because having been a creative director, even in advertising, you know, I knew how to take the problem and solve it and work with the client. So I just applied that to my own circumstance, and I've been able to do that. For example, I've illustrated children's books, which may be surprising to some of you, knowing that I'm a sports illustrator, because the books weren't about sports. But I've done children's books, and two authors had come back to me in the past couple of years to do a second book, each of them. And because that wasn't part of my overall business objective, I had turned it down. Well, I revisited that this spring and
Yeah.
called them up and said, "Hey, if you're interested, you know, it might be good timing because I'm shut in." And as it turns out, this year I will have done two books and possibly a third one on the
Wow.
way. So, and those were clients that already had a relationship with. They were satisfied with my work, and were thrilled that I had the time to work on it. So it worked out to be a win-win situation.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. And I think everything you just said is a perfect example of the importance of having, as you mentioned, those different pillars that hold up your roof, right? As an artist, it's not just one stream, but how can you diversify and so that you can prepare, right? And if one falls down, you have something to lean on. So I think that's really an interesting way of looking at it, but it's really important for other artists to kind of see that's a strategy that has worked for you. And I think that's really important in art business.
Lily, one of the things I want to pick up on something that you said there, if I
Mhm.
can. And just a few moments ago, you talked about readdressing beauty in a time of COVID, and the fact that you know, I approached my clients with, "Hey, this is the right time to have art in your life." But I have to be honest in saying it. First of all, I had to deal with it myself. I went through a personal struggle, and I'm saying this partly because I believe a lot of artists who tend to be sensitive people, um, you know, struggle with what they call their muse. I call it my soul care. I had to take care of my own soul, and I found that the constant barrage of news and politics and bad news was taking a toll on me, and
Mhm.
all the creativity was just sucked right out of me. And I even had a talk with one of my consultants at Clark Hewlings, who recommended, you know, that I pivot and start doing some um, everyday heroes, which was done by, you know, Robin Holder, one of my peers. I've been in
Mhm.
communication with her, and I really had this idea that, well, it's a great opportunity for me to be current and to do things that would be, you know, play well on social media. But the truth is, my energy just went out of me. And in order to gain that back, I had to distance myself just a bit from, I mean, I realize it's important to stay informed, but I had to distance myself from the news and from other things and take a little bit of time to do some what I call forest bathing. I go out into the woods and go fly fishing or
Self-care.
something like that. Yeah, and really just begin to nurture again, and I began to feel that energy coming back into me. So I just want to mention that because that's one of the things I think is really, really important during this time. It's not just a matter of thinking how you're going to pivot, but to take care of yourself in the process because this too will pass. I
Yeah,
also
thanks for bringing that up.
yeah, I also took the opportunity while I had some downtime to do some long things I've been putting off. So I upgraded my website and I went on and remodeled my studio. I have a 2,000 square foot studio. You can see behind me, it's not finished. It's
Yeah.
still in process, but I put in new lighting and new flooring and some walls. And I'm actually, uh, I'd been putting that off for years. And so it was a good opportunity for me to begin to do that. And but all the time I'm staying engaged with my my overall business objective, even though corporate's not buying. You know, I've tried to make new connections, and so that's part of the
Mhm.
process for me.
The connection building piece is something you can do even if it's not fruitful right now. It's sort
Exactly.
of for the long game, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and you've answered beautifully to the question of how have you pivoted in so many different ways, right? It kind of sounds like you already had set yourself up in a way that it would be easy to pivot if one thing fell, if one of your income sources and the ways that you kind of generate business fell. But is there anything else that we haven't discussed that you'd like to add about pivoting strategy?
Well, I will say this just so everyone understands for me how important this was. Uh, I was invited to the Olympics. My overall business, really my pivotal project for this year was to go to the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. And I had a solo exhibition set up for the Tokyo American Club in Tokyo, concurrent with the games. And I had 5 exhibitions set up in the US this year of solo exhibits. They were all canceled, everything. Well, the Olympics themselves were canceled. Fortunately, that has not been canceled, I shouldn't say. It's been postponed till next year. So
Hmm.
everything shifts over 12 months. And assuming that there are Olympics next year, I will be a part of that. But, you know, a major portion, well, virtually all of my income was going to come from those sources. And when
Hmm.
that dried up, I was in desperate straits. So I think keeping your mind alert and realizing that, you know, it's a matter of not, you do have to take a different approach. Had to come at it differently. I couldn't go after the niche markets. By the way, I did mention to you that I'm, you know, continuing to engage them. I'm primarily using LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Obviously, I use other social media as well. And by the way, I'm an old guy. I'm 68, so you know, social media it didn't come natural for me. I'm having to learn what you know your generation, my daughter's generation, just know very very naturally. So it's
Hmm.
an uncomfortable marriage, but you know, I'm getting better at it because I'm a lifelong learner. I'm eager to learn and I want to learn. So I just applied myself to it. And I've noticed that, particularly through LinkedIn, because I'm going after corporate
Hmm.
networks, I've made a lot of new connections that I think will bear fruit, you know, somewhere down the road.
Sure. I'm glad you brought that up because it also made me think about some of the research that's coming out is showing that people are engaging in new channels of social media that they hadn't before to drive business. And so I don't know if that LinkedIn was new for you or if maybe you increased the frequency with which you've been, engaging in those social channels and to develop and build the relationships with people or even just to start that connection. But that's definitely something that's been indicated in the research as well.
You know, actually, LinkedIn wasn't new to me, but I hadn't used it actually for my art business. When I was in advertising as a creative director, I already had you know, a lot of connections, but they didn't know me as an artist. And that's one of the things Daniel Degree had told me to get in there and upgrade your LinkedIn profile as a professional
Yeah.
artist and start posting things and get some traction. So I did, and I've got this year a whole new group of people that I'm connecting with in the corporate sector for different reasons, and that's been good for me. So while it's not new, it is new. And
Yeah, I hear
that's
you.
kind of everything in my life right now. While it's
Yeah,
not new, it is new.
totally. That's a great way to kind of end this chat because I think you've shared a lot of your wisdom with us and a lot of your, the actual concrete strategies you've used and some inspiration too. It sounds like taking some time out from art for a minute allowed you to kind of come back, have a clearer perspective and maybe regain that inspiration in some way. So I appreciate you sharing with us today and thanks for joining us, Stephen. And hopefully we'll see you at the Virtualize Your Art Business conference that's coming up. Great.
Absolutely. Love to see it.